Hi, everyone. This is Andrea Powell with UNITAS. I am the Director of Survivor and Youth Engagement, and I have my friend and colleague here, Louisa. Louisa, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi. Thanks so much for including me in this conversation. I'm Louisa Cosmo and have been fortunate enough to just learn about UNITAS and continue to teach myself about it through these wonderful people like Andrea.
Oh, thank you. So today, Louisa and I are doing a breakout as part of our effort to help parents talk to kids about trafficking. Yeah. And there's one form of exploitation and potential trafficking that is happening across America to kids all over the country, mainly young boys between the ages of about 7 to about 12. And it's something that I've been seeing for a while, and it's really often just overlooked by all of us because it's so normalized, and it looks like, it looks like something that you would just see on a regular school day or after school program. But what it is kids who are selling items on the streets, often in unsafe conditions. So to start the conversation, I'm going to play an audio that I recorded last February. And what was going on is I was looking at these little boys, one in particular who looked about 7 or 8, and they were running in and out of a relatively dangerous looking 7-Eleven. There were a lot of kind of, big guys standing around and people getting in arguments, and these little boys are just running around. And I thought, that looks weird. So I went over to talk to one of the little boys, and I'll explain a little more after we play it.
For a tutoring center. It's a Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, cool. Here in D.C.?
D.C., Washington, D.C.
Okay.
It was like Avenue, North Avenue? No, Avenue. Washington, D.C.
Cool.
I think it was North Avenue.
You have to work all day on a Sunday, though?
Yep. I'm going to school tomorrow.
Okay. What are you, like, 5th grade?
No, I'm not 5th grade. I am now, but I am supposed to be, like, in the 3rd grade, but actually in 2nd.
Oh, okay. You're smart, huh? All right, hold on.
How much costs iPhone 11?
Yeah.
It's expensive.
You can get like a plan, it's like $100 a month. I get it for work though, otherwise I couldn't afford it. All right, hold on.
I get an iPhone 11 Pro. How much does it cost again?
Oh, I'm not sure. Hold on. All righty. Listen, I want you to be safe out here, okay? You got a parent or somebody with you?
Yeah, I got like my 2 friends and my brother. And
okay.
My cousin and my
You get to keep any of what you make?
Huh?
You get to keep any of what you make, or it all goes to the program?
Some comes to me, some goes to the program.
Okay. Well, listen, you be safe, all right?
You too, ma'am.
Okay. Bye, sweet.
He was such a nice little kid.
Such nice manners at the end.
He did. He had really good manners. He was so fixated on my phone. I was having a hard time. It's like right there, like right on me, checking that phone out. I was like, it was cute, but there was also obviously some sadness in what was going on. So, Louisa, what we were listening to is a little boy who is being exploited for profit. Someone is making him sell candy. Obviously, it was on a Sunday. I deliberately wanted to know if he worked all day on a Sunday. Little known fact, but children under the age of 14 are not supposed to be working at all. Certainly not on a weekend. There are very strict labor conditions, not only in the District of Columbia, but around the country.
Yeah.
There's nowhere where this is actually legal. So what are some of the red flags for you, like listening to it, that catches your attention, like maybe this kid's not like in the best condition?
First was just his answers to you seemed so fluctuating. Where are you? I'm in DC. Wait, I'm in Washington. I'm in DC. He kept kind of repeating that and not really knowing the streets, the avenue. To me, I have a young one who's under the age of 5, and he knows where he lives. He could tell me his address. He could tell me his school. He could tell me all these important things that are facets in his life that he sees every day, that he goes to every day. So for that child not to easily flow out a conversation, usually kids give you too much,
right?
Too many personal facts, too much information. So that was probably the first for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like that struck me, and he could not really explain the program that he was with. And so we were talking the other day, like I was an aggressive little Girl Scout, and but I knew who my troop was. I knew where we met. I knew.
Yeah.
I was confident. Like if someone said, "Why are you out here selling candy?" I would say, "Because I'm a Girl Scout. We're raising money for our summer camps, or whatever."
I'm going to win my badge. Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to get that badge, like one way or another, people." But he didn't have that confidence at all, and that really struck me. Also, I did see an older boy, and I'm going to say he was maybe a man, maybe early 20s or late teens. It was a little hard to say, but he was definitely like hanging back, like watching the other kids running around. So he was like supervising, but he was far enough away that this kid was kind of in the streets with me, like at the corner. Wow. And it's a pretty busy area. And so, one thing that bothers me when I see this, and I was seeing it all the time before the pandemic, is that these kids are so close to traffic, and little kids are, not the best at, multitasking. So they're not really like long-term thinkers. So, he could easily just run into traffic, because he sees someone he's trying to sell candy to and gets distracted, so that.
Or even that it was one child walking up to you instead of, even if he was there with friends or a brother, I feel like, or a cousin, whatever family member he mentioned, I feel like if that was something that was parent approved or something, even if I'm not used to it from my own world, that they were used to going someplace on their own without an adult, that maybe they would be together, that they wouldn't just send a third grader. Is that what he mentioned he was in?
He also did not know how old he was. Right. Or he wouldn't tell me, but he didn't know his grade. He didn't know.
Right.
So I don't know, but my guess is he was 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it might be a different level of normalcy and freedom for whatever their family situation is or whatever his daily life is, to have more freedom than maybe my children would have where we are, it would still be a red flag to me as a mom that there was just no adult there.
Yeah.
On top of how you've described the area, on top of the traffic and the 7-Eleven and all those lovely factors coming at you.
Yeah. And also, like, just to give everyone listening some context. So he's holding a box. It's regular kind of book size box. And in it is a bunch of random candy that's all crumply up. Like, it's not candy. It's not organized. It's not all the same kind. It's filthy. And he's selling it for $1 a piece. So it doesn't look like a program. And if I were speaking to, if there were an adult around and I was speaking to that person, I would ask them for their tax ID. I would ask them for evidence of what the program is. In the District of Columbia, there are a number of these scams that go on where you have an adult, typically a guy, sometimes also a girl, though, because I want people to understand, like, just because you see a woman in the mix doesn't mean it's not exploitation. Yeah. But it's also, it's a big red flag when they can't describe the program they're with. So in addition to my work at UNITAS, I've started 2 other nonprofits, and I can tell you assuredly, I would not hire an 8-year-old to fundraise for me. I certainly would not hire an 8-year-old to work on a Sunday with a dirty box of candy as our fundraising mechanism. So it's just, there's so many red flags, and it's actually, there's so many kids that are being exploited this way. And one of the reasons I wanted to also talk about this is because of the pandemic, we're seeing a lot more desperation. And I guess I wanted to ask you, like, what do you think of like parents or guardians who like know their kids are going into the city to work like this?
I mean, I can't imagine if that was my reality. I try not to have some judgment towards whatever they need to do to make their ends meet and what they might think is safe. I don't know what conversation they had in the background. I don't know if one of these adults who was a red flag for you walked in really kindly and was saying, hey, I'm going to take some boys in the neighborhood. They really want to do something entrepreneurial. And maybe they were sold a bag of goods as well. And in my situation, I obviously can easily say, oh, I would never send my child that way, but I don't know what their situation was. I don't know what the mom or the parent or the grandmother was told. And maybe she thought this boy was going to be able to make some money and he was proud of himself in some way.
And I think that's a really good point is, it's not, it's not easy to understand the background that walks to this situation. But I often hear from law enforcement when I've tried to report, when I've seen some of these cases, they'll say, well, you know, at least they're not on the streets. Like, well, actually, they actually are on the street. But what they're meaning to say is like, oh, they're not out getting into trouble. But, you know, that's, to me, like, that's not the best strategy, you know, because there's after school programs, there are programs for kids, but I also understand that sometimes, you know, families want to make money or the child wants to help out. And in my years of working with trafficking survivors, particularly kids, and in particular boys, they're often looking for a way to provide for their family or provide for themselves, you know. They see other people, you know, doing their thing, you know, trying to make money, so they're like, why not me? And so it's more complex than just saying like, well, you know, this is an exploitative situation and the kid, you know, has no say. It's more complicated than that. So you've seen our comic that we created at UNITAS called Candy Con, and it's actually based off the lived experiences of several boys I've met over the years who have been are being exploited through these candy schemes. But it's not just candy. It can be water, it can be umbrellas, it can be kind of the item itself doesn't matter. In DC, for whatever reason, candy seems to be the thing. I noticed in Miami and when I was there that it was water bottles.
Makes sense.
Yes, it's very hot there. So I understand the scheme. In London, it was umbrellas. Also, I understand that scheme too. With the rain.
Marketed well.
Yes. The market research was effective. But you know, the reality is, I think as a society, we have to do better. We have to find other opportunities for these kids to get their needs met, and families. And
is this mainly boys when you see it? Like every time I picture it in my head, I've seen boys.
It's boys.
Is it because it's a red flag? I don't know why this is. It's terrible to say, but if I saw the little girls running through a parking lot together trying to sell something, I'd probably be more worried than if I saw a group of boys running through a parking lot doing something.
Yeah. And, you know, you and I were talking a little bit about this the other day. I think there's some gender dynamics into this type of exploitation where people see boys being entrepreneurial and enterprising and think, oh, boys will be boys and, you know, they're fine. And they see girls and think, well, where's her mother? And that's not safe for her, because we have this visual, right, of the kid who gets kidnapped. The visual is often a little girl. And, you know, putting, you know, some things aside, it's that gender dynamic actually is harmful for boys in this context, because a little 7-year-old boy is just as vulnerable as a 7-year-old girl when it comes to getting hit by a car, when it comes to being exploited in some other way. I have seen a few girls. I used to see a family often. It was a mom and a boy and a girl. And I was very worried about what was going on with them. And I spoke with the mom many times, and it was very obvious that she was actually using her kids to make money. Again, trying not to be judgmental, but it was, you know, very frustrating to see these kids every day after school, at night, you know, and there really wasn't anything anyone could do about it. But
when you see this, what do you do? What should we do?
Yes. And so, you know, I think that's something that a lot of people want to know. And I think it's an important question is, so there's a few things you can do. One is, if possible, I encourage you not to give them money, but to actually, you know, if you end up speaking to them, you know, asking them if they're okay and what they're raising money for, and they'll tell you these things, you know, just like the little boy did with me. And, you know, if you feel like there's red flags, if a kid is out working past dark, you can just go ahead and call it. It's a problem. If a kid is out there seemingly by themselves, you can go ahead and call it. But if you're unsure, calling the National Human Trafficking Hotline and making a report about the location and the time and what you saw, and being very clear with your description, can be very helpful. You can make the call anonymously. And the good news is, if you make a mistake, no harm, no foul. Nobody's going to get hurt.
Right. Yeah.
It's okay to be a little nosy. And the other thing is, they will be able to report what you've told them to law enforcement, because they're mandated to report potential child exploitation or child abuse. So I would do that, and then have the number for your local child protective services and call them as well, just so that they get calls from two different sides. Now, to be honest, you may not know what happens. You likely will not know what happens. But repeatedly making those calls is important, because oftentimes when kids are being exploited in this way, they're coming back to the same location.
Okay.
So there's an opportunity. Again, you're not looking to get the child in trouble, but finding someone, a professional who can connect with them and figure out, are there other ways that their needs can be met?
Right.
And are there other ways?
Are they always this young?
They're almost always this.
Always, okay.
Like 7, 8, 9. That's what I usually see. I have seen a few who are a little older. When we created CandyCon, the story of Leo was 14. And that was strategically because our curriculum that's tied to the comics is for junior high and high school kids. So we needed a kid who was a little closer in age to them. Otherwise, inevitably,
right.
Yeah, well, they would have been like, oh, that's a little kid. That had never happened to me. So we had to kind of like hone it in a little bit. Yeah. So we had to be strategic, but the reality is they're typically 7, 8, or 9. And in the story of Leo, which I'll actually add the comic to the end of this discussion for those who want to watch it after we end. Leo is experiencing domestic violence in his home. His mom loses her job as a result of that. So they're struggling to find food and survive. And he's trying to hustle. He's trying to make some money. He's approached by a kid in the neighborhood who he knows. And then things kind of start to go really wrong. And eventually Leo makes a really great choice and goes and talks to his school counselor. And together they work with his mom and his grandmother so that Leo's safe. So there's a happy ending there. And that's really what we want for every kid.
Yeah, what I love about that comic and all of your comics really is it shows how seemingly natural it flows into this issue. Whereas in the periphery, we can judge it as what a terrible decision or this shouldn't be happening. It shows, okay, it's just a friend. I mean, how many of us can say in our own lives or in our children's lives, they would follow a friend to the end of the earth in ways that maybe they shouldn't,
Oh, yeah.
And anything seemingly simple. So as Leo has an older friend say, oh, yeah, I make some money on the side and you can make some money. You can help your mom. And it ties to the heartstrings. And it seems such like a natural progression on how it becomes a problem really fast and what that little problem leads to a bigger problem. And so, yes, I encourage everyone to watch the comics because even, as an adult, as a mom, it's something I hadn't thought of, how that flow happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And, people can also download our parent guide in its entirety. You can take it piecemeal. I'll put a link into the video feed so that everyone can grab that full guide or check out the comics.
Yeah.
As you're thinking about, if you're a parent or you're close to a young person and you're thinking about speaking to them about trafficking, the chances are they've heard a little bit. So you won't be shocking them, but we'll be giving you some step-by-step tips and tools on like how do you approach a child and talk about this issue in a way that's age appropriate and safe for them. And everyone has to kind of figure out like how that looks for them. But the reality is, as we're closing, that more and more kids are online. In fact, there's 29 million children who are not in school right now. They're fully virtual.
Wow.
There are many, many more who are hybrid. Kids are very nervous about their future. They are experiencing a lot of isolation. Of course, there's many beautiful things about kids getting to spend more time at home. But for many parents, what that looks like is chaos because they're trying to work. They're trying to keep their job. They're trying to help their kid be educated. Their kid's lonely and they're meeting people online. So it's good to have those conversations as best you can so that they know they can come and talk to you, that they can trust you, that they can ask questions. And that basically, people often think, oh, if I talk to my kid about trafficking, I'm going to scare them. But I encourage people to think you're actually giving them tools. So you're making the world a less scary place because they know they've got tools to address things.
And you taught me something in our conversations recently, which was so important in how you talk about it. You don't have to explain the world and how grandiose this topic is. You did such a great job with one of your life examples telling me just to educate kids on what isn't normal, what should be a trigger in their mind to just keep in the back of your mind casually. If this is happening, or if someone says this, or if this presents in your life, that's not normal. even if it feels normal, if it just feels like a natural progression into something, it's not a normal thing. So when you see that, know it's a red flag. And just having that in the back of their mind, as you said, is such a tool to go pause. Just that one moment of pause to go, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't be online. Maybe I shouldn't be, whatever the topic is.
Right. Or maybe, you know, if a kid like has to trust, you know, their instinct, you know, and I always tell my daughters, if something in you says that person's not right, or this situation doesn't feel right, you don't have to apologize. You can just leave. You can get up and walk away. You can tell a parent, or if you have a little friend who looks like something's not right, you can talk to your parents. You can talk to someone about it. But there's a lot of different tips and resources in our parent guide and things you can do to make sure your kid can like figure out the journey with you and learning about this topic. But Louisa, thank you so much for joining in today.
Thank you.
I can't wait to share this with others, and I hope that you and your boys have a beautiful day.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for including me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Talk soon. Bye.